Forget about Nightmare on Elm Street. How about nightmares in cybersecurity? These stories and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP, the channel's expert in telecommunications and distributed networking. We create business for your company to help you grow and reach your targets. Learn more at oit.co or call 844-CALL-OIT today.
Good morning and welcome to the October 13th, Friday the 13th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm Ray Orsini, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Tony Francisco. How you doing, Tony?
Very good, Mr. Raymond Orsini. How the heck are you doing today, other than just reveling in that 3D printer that we both now have the same type of, but you've been hoarding to yourself. You've been keeping. It's amazing.
It's not that bad. It's just a little bit of money. It's not crazy.
But you can't keep a secret like that. So just so everyone knows, Ray gets all the, if you haven't seen any of the shows, like literally any show, like literally just one show, how he gets all the toys. He had the Bamboo Labs Carbonite X1 3D printer, and I've been looking. He's like, it's not bad. It's pretty good. And then I got it. And it's
good. It's so good.
It's not good. I'm angry that you were hiding, you were hoarding, you were keeping this knowledge to yourself and not sharing it publicly. This is the most amazing 3D printer. It says, oh, can you please hold on? There seems to be something jammed over here. Let me take care of this. Oh, hey, you know what? It needs a little bit of
and then you watch
it
from your phone, and then you can stream it to Discord, and then you're like, and then it records videos. Did you put the SD card in the?
I did.
Yet? Yeah,
I'm redesigning my whole house around this thing. Oh,
I get it, but you can 3D print your house, so you can design it around the printer.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it is fantastic. I love it. Absolutely strongly recommend to anybody. I learned recently that acrylic paints are best for PLA prints. And I got putty to fill in the cracks. I got sandpaper to sand it down. I got primer. I got my acrylic paints. I'm trying so hard not to do spray paint or paint airbrushing. But you know, before I go down this horrible rabbit hole, I think we should do some news.
We should get into the news, but we have to have like a whole episode on 3D printing just because it is that amazing. And there was a huge article that Dallas is coming out with the largest 3D printed housing establishment. And if you look at these 3D printed houses, they are beautiful.
Oh, they're so cool. Yeah. I wish they would make it flat because, you know, it has the layer lines. I get why they're not. It kind of looks like something out of Star Wars. Kind of on Tatooine or something.
Yeah.
So, but it's very cool. Yeah. But, you know, maybe we'll do a technical deficit episode on 3D printing and show off some of the stuff you and I have done with our bamboo.
Yes.
Let us know
what
in
we
the
should
comments
do
if you want to do it.
Yes.
What should we do?
Let's get into the news. Jumping into my first story from bleepingcomputer.com. A newly discovered DDoS technique named HTTP2 Rapid Reset has been exploited as a zero-day since August, setting unprecedented magnitudes. Coordinated disclosures by Amazon Web Services, Cloudflare, and Google highlighted mitigated attacks reaching up to 398 million requests per second by Google. Cloudflare noted the attack they mitigated was 3 times their previous record, using a botnet of only 20,000 machines. The attack takes advantage of HTTP2's protocol's stream cancellation feature, continuously sending and canceling requests, thereby overloading the target. Cloudflare deployed an IP jail system to combat this, temporarily barring offending IPs from using the rapid reset technique on Cloudflare domains. As the exploit is rooted in the HTTP2 protocol, software developers are integrating rate controls for mitigation. Cloudflare kept the vulnerability confidential for over a month, allowing security stakeholders time to address the issue. Ray, let's unpack this just a little bit, starting at the last point first. We have said repeatedly, disclose, disclose, disclose. We even came up with for everyone understands, every time you say it, you got to mail a quarter to Ray. LastPassy, a technique where something happens, you don't really talk about it, and then it happens, and then you don't really talk about it, and then you kind of blow it off until it really starts happening, and now you've already been LastPassy too long, and now you're just LastPass. In this particular case, Cloudflare did not disclose this, allowing the stakeholders to resolve this as soon as possible before it was exploited across the board. Is that the right thing to do here at this point, or are they on the verge of becoming LastPassy?
This hurts a little bit because Cloudflare is the one we normally go to is like, this is who you need to emulate. Their write-ups have been phenomenal. Their transparency in previous events have been phenomenal. Like, this is not an average company is becoming LastPassy. This is somebody we showed up as like, this is the example. So to take an exemplary company like Cloudflare and have something where they're not disclosing, I have feelings about it. I don't know if I'm being overly emotional on the subject or I'm setting the bar too high because it happens to everybody. I don't know. What do you say, Tony? I mean, you use Cloudflare just like I do. What's your takeaway here?
Well, so I'm in this constant search for the canonical example of orthodox security practices. That's a better way of saying it. What I'm trying to get to is that by taking a LastPassy approach, gosh, every time I say that, it's just ching, like you're going to get a little. You hear your Venmo account.
I have a citation X I'm trying to pick up, so please continue. Please continue.
They're conforming to orthodox security standards, and publicly notifying everyone that this exists. The bad guys can act faster. Even the ones that weren't aware of this can start acting, and the good guys don't have time to shut the doors. They don't have time to clean everything up. So that's where I'm going with it. Which is there a time and place, and how do we define that? What are the incentives for people to talk sooner unless X, and what is that X? That's what I'm trying to decide. This is I'm struggling here. I've got this moral and ethical conflict.
X is not Twitter. We're talking about. The algebraic variable. No. So the counterpoint to that is the faster people learn of it, the faster they can mitigate it. Right? Like, that's reasonable. Don't get me wrong. I do like the fact that they actually mitigated it as far as Cloudflare could. I do like the fact that, they have the wherewithal to block these crazy things, but what about people that weren't going through Cloudflare? What about people that were using internet without Cloudflare protected endpoints? What good did Cloudflare do there? How did they help them there? They didn't. And that's a good reason for information exchange, right? There's conventions for sharing this information without going general public. CISA has conventions for this. Every ISAO has conventions for this. It's called TLP, Traffic Light Protocol. I just learned about it last year. But people should go look. And there's actually commands there's ratings for this can be shared publicly. This is for insider knowledge only. But so the security community can take action. So to me, there's no excuse for this. I don't think so. I'd love to hear from the MSPs. Tell us why I'm wrong, or tell us why Tony's wrong, or tell us why Cloudflare's right. I don't know. Just let us know in the comments below.
But in the meantime, since it's clear that security is the number one thing everyone should be talking about, CISOs are the ones that do it all right all the time. CISOs are the people we need to follow across the board, right, Ray?
Sorry, I was ordering some Uber. Actually... Funny enough, in our next story, Uber's ex-CISO appeals conviction over 2016 data breach, written by Jai Vijayan for Dark Reading. Joseph Sullivan, Uber's former Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, is appealing his conviction earlier this year related to the 2016 data breach. Sullivan's conviction is connected to a 2016 data breach that exposed sensitive information of over 50 million customers and 600,000 drivers. Prosecutors allege that Sullivan concealed the breach from the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, during their investigation into Uber's data security and privacy practices. Additionally, he was accused of paying $100,000 to the hackers responsible for the breach, a payment he claimed was a bug bounty, a common cybersecurity practice. The case has stirred concerns in the industry, with many believing CISOs are increasingly held responsible for broader security failures in their organizations. If Sullivan is accountable for not reporting the breach, others, including Uber's then CEO Travis Kalanick, should also share the responsibility. Sullivan's appeal challenges the criminalization of bug bounty programs and underscores their significance in modern security strategies. His legal team argues that his actions aim to effectively address security risks rather than conceal a criminal act. The government's characterization of his behavior as criminal could impact how bug bounty agreements are perceived, potentially discouraging organizations from using this approach to enhance security. Tony, I want to say that, we have the ability we have the conventions for good, well-meaning security researchers to report issues and get compensated for it by the good guys. And when that avenue is not available, there is a not small subset of those same people that'll just go to the bad guys who will pay for this stuff. The bad guys have been paying for this stuff forever. So, there's a fine line where the CISOs are responsible for the decisions made, but also they're handling on behalf of an entity, on an organization, right? The Supreme Court has already ruled that a business is not a person; it's an entity. So, where does the buck stop? Are we blaming CISOs for paying bug bounties? I'm specifically not talking about did he pay off somebody and use bug bounty as like the cover up, but like just paying bug bounties in general. What's your take on that?
Well, I think this goes back to the previous story, which was, when is the right time to tell? And is there a time to not tell? Was this the time to not tell? And then where's that gradient? When does chemistry turn into biology? There's such a fine line in there, but the gradient is so gradual. The question is, hey, is the bug bounty, was it actually a bug bounty that was exploited? So consequently, you're paying for the bug resolution, but then that's addressing the exploiters as well. Is that part of the payoff? Then you get into the entirely new side of it, which we've covered here on MSP Dispatch multiple times, of the CISOs holding the liability. So now you've gone all the way to one side where the CISOs hold liability. Let's go all the way to the other side where an exploit is not necessarily an exploit, it's a bug bounty. But when is the right time to say something, and when does it turn into the exploit, and is the liability passed over to the CISO themselves? There's so many gradients in there, and I think this is one of those fascinating conversations where when does chemistry become biology? It is there's clearly a tie somewhere in there, and I don't think that we've had enough time to research this. And the one thing is explicitly clear here. If you were the CISO, do you want to say something? No one wants to say something. That's like, you want. Not. Nobody. Yeah, I want you to do dishes. Yeah. You need to want to do the dishes. If you've ever seen that movie, he goes, "Why would I want to do the dishes?" No, but you have to. So the question is, when does the CISO say something, and what is their incentive to do so?
The incentive should be, ideally, the incentive should be you're doing the right thing. That's your job. You're doing the right thing. You're disclosing. Realistically, people are going to see why. I've often said, I wouldn't become an MSP today. It's too much risk. It's too much liability. These CISOs are taking on very significant risk. And if they're going to be held with their feet to the fire for those decisions, even as something as simple as paying out a bug bounty, that's concerning to me. I worry if those cybersecurity professionals are going to look for other jobs, right? Just like teachers have looked for other jobs. How many IT people do you know that went into farming or goat farming or something just to get away from technology? So that's my concern. My concern is we're going to make it too ethereal where we can't nail down, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm not supposed to do. Because I've yet to see anything by CISA or NIST or anybody else saying, don't pay bug bounties. I've yet to see that recommendation. So if that's not in place, please don't hold CISOs accountable for paying bug bounties. Again, totally separate. Uber's been in the news before many, many, many times for bad actions. Not talking about that case specifically, because we don't know. We don't know if he was really hiding a payout or he was really. We don't know, and we're not going to guess at it. But the higher idea of should CISOs be able to pay out bug bounties, I think most people agree yes. Speaking of paying out stuff, Tony, your next story. There's no money in disaster recovery. It's a loss leader. Is that what I'm seeing?
Oh, something like that. That's a great intro to my second story, Ray. From channel E to E.com, the disaster recovery as a service, that's DRAS for the MSPs out there, market is anticipated to grow at a CAGR, that's compound annual growth rate, of 24.8% from 2022 to 2030, with it potentially rising from 12.81 billion, that's US dollars, to 75.22 billion. As per a report from Future Market Insights. The growth is attributed to the global digital shift, increasing cyber threats, and the need for data protection. The DRAS market's features, such as flexibility and cost effectiveness, have made it popular among enterprises. The pandemic also highlighted the necessity for DRAS, as only 17% of firms were prepared for its impact. The report also suggests that the public cloud deployment segment may account for 49% of the global share by the end of 2030. Ray, okay, you and I have heard of this thing. What's it called? Cloud, internet thing, this trend thing.
Yeah. Other people's computers. Yeah.
Yeah. So other people's computers. That compound annual growth rate for just the DRAS market is enormous. But doesn't that illustrate the fact that because you have all this amazing activity that's happening, you need to what's that called? Back it up. You need to back it up just in case. So are we kind of telling one side of the story and talking about the DRAS market, and we're not talking about how big the cloud market in general is going to grow? Because one clearly indicates the other. At least that's what we hope.
So the thing that surprises me is now we just came back from DattoCon where MMN was reporting on the keynote there and the other sessions, and they highlighted how they had bought Datto. We all assumed when they mentioned hardware in the beginning, it was for the backup stuff. They mentioned DattoCon, it was also for the networking. It doesn't change that the backup portfolio of Datto is actually pretty impressive. It always has been. I don't disagree with you. I think this is a small part of a larger whole with the cloud. I think these kind of stories are relevant only because we've seen the stories where like Basecamp talked about how they moved back from cloud to save money. We've heard things about talking about Azure outages or AWS outages. And as our good friend Jason Slagle says, friends don't let friends put their stuff on AWS East. But I love seeing this showing the counterpoint of the money is there. Too bad it's only a tiny leap going from, what was it, 12.1 billion to 72 point something billion. Tiny leap. When we think about it, that's by 2030, 6 years from now. We're in October. It's about 2024, 2030, 6 years. That's not bad with all those cybersecurity professionals looking for work. This seems really good. Especially if they want to get out of CISO life. I don't know. I like it. It makes sense. I see why MSPs are going to be interested in it because MSPs want to know where the money is. And let's be honest, it's not your uptime. It's how you recover from downtime, right? That's where things fall apart. So I love that, there's enough money to go back and say to the MSPs, focus on this. Your money's there. I don't know. Am I off base here, Tony?
I think you're hitting it on the money. I love can just for everyone's edification. What was that saying again? It's not how long what was it?
It's not your uptime. It's how you recover from downtime.
It's like that's like an ideal state configuration to me. It's like it just speaks to my heart. It does. But you know what? Let's kind of land this plane with this. I would love to hear from the MSPs what their thoughts on DRaaS are. Do you want something local? Do you want it cloud-based? Do you want a hybrid? Do you have a specific file type or persona that you are backing up? Or are you just backing up everything? And how do you accommodate that? Is that what that growth is, just because of the data proliferation? What are your thoughts, Ray?
No, and that's it, right? We're getting more and more complex. And I don't know how the average end user, so I'll use Salesforce, for example. Salesforce is very clear that when you're paying them, a bucket load of cash, you're effectively paying close to a car payment per user. They're very clear. They're not backing up jack. Microsoft is very clear. They have the 30-day retention for the soft delete. They're not backing up your stuff. So it's no longer just, I have to back up my Sage, my QuickBooks desktop, my whatever it is, my LOB apps. I got to back up my file shares. Now your data could be hybrid. At least I can't think of any business where at least some component isn't in the cloud. And you still have to have DR for that too. What do you do if there's no internet? What do you do if the site goes down? What do you do if the business goes out of business and all your data is lost? So
you are triggering my anxiety, Ray.
I'm sorry. You know what, Tony? Before we terrify any other MSPs on this Friday the 13th, let's do some notables, man.
And jumping into my first notable mention from TheVerge.com, Microsoft's new AI Copilot arrives in OneNote in November. Microsoft is introducing its Microsoft 365 Copilot Assistant to OneNote this November, allowing users to generate lists, draft plans, and rewrite notes. Launching on November 1st for select Microsoft 365 businesses and enterprise plans, OneNote is among the initial apps to feature Copilot. Some enterprise customers have been trialing Copilot in apps like Word and Excel. Priced at $30 per user per month, it will be accessible via the home ribbon in OneNote, offering features like summarizing notes and creating to-do lists. Microsoft intends to extend Copilot to its consumer Microsoft 365 version next year, with OneNote likely to be among the first apps to receive it. OneDrive is also slated for Copilot integration. In my next notable mention from ArsTechnica.com, Google is now prioritizing Passkeys as the default login option for its users. Using the WebAuthn standard, Passkeys utilize device authentication methods like biometrics or PINs. They offer enhanced security by providing unique keys for each account, safeguarding against threats like phishing and massive password breaches. Although Google introduced Passkey support in May, it was optional. Now, users will be actively prompted to switch to Passkeys, but they can have opt-outs in their account settings.
In my first notable mention, Microsoft October 2023 Patch Tuesday fixes 3 0 days and 104 flaws. Written by Lawrence Abrams on Bleeping Computer. Microsoft's October 2023 Patch Tuesday brings updates for 104 vulnerabilities, including 3 exploited 0 days. With 45 RCE flaws, all critical, the list encompasses various vulnerabilities like elevation of privilege, security feature bypass, information disclosure, denial of service, and spoofing. The 3 0 days are CVE 2023-41763, or Skype for Business elevation of privilege vulnerability, CVE 2023-36563, Microsoft WordPad information disclosure vulnerability, and CVE 2023-44487, an actively exploited DDoS attack technique called HTTP2 Rapid Reset. Where have you heard that before? On MSP Dispatch. For the last issue, Microsoft suggests disabling HTTP2 protocol on web servers. In my second notable mention, California's new law makes it easier for consumers to request the deletion of their data. Written by Sarah Fielding on Engadget. California has taken a groundbreaking step in data privacy with the enactment of the Delete Act. This law empowers the California Privacy Protection Agency, or CPPA, to develop a tool enabling residents to request the deletion of their data from nearly 500 registered data brokers. Previously, individuals had to contact each company separately, a cumbersome process. The CPPA has until 2026 to create the system, which will also allow them to charge brokers for its use. And brokers who fail to comply within a 45-day period face penalties. While the Delete Act aims to safeguard sensitive information, it has faced opposition from groups concerned about the impact on advertising and small businesses.
And now a clip from this week's episode of AI Roundup. So for today's use case, of all things, this came to me by way of a Twitter screenshot on Facebook. Facebook has rolled out a new AI sticker generator for Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram. The generator uses Meta's Llama 2 large language model, and it is currently in limited release. So for this story, I do have access to it, but I'm checking with some of my friends. I've seen that there's definitely a large number of people that don't have access to it. So if you do, please, by all means, let me see what you can get it to make. Several stories out there that I picked up on this as well to just get more information, and it's telling us that, early users have found that the content safeguards are not very effective. The tool has generated inappropriate or offensive content, including likenesses of famous people and compromising situations. Yes, those are the things that we always love to see AI generating image engines do. Meta has attempted to block certain words in text prompts, but users have found ways to bypass these restrictions. For me, I could not get it to generate Guy Fieri. As soon as I put in Guy Fieri, it just disappears. There's no options. But if you wanted to generate things that are explicit that it thinks it shouldn't, like nudity or something like that, it's pretty easy to make it work if you just misspell the word. And if you try it enough times, it'll actually get through. I saw a ton of hilarious examples, some of which I don't think I can actually show on this video. I think it's okay to put them on Twitter, but YouTube probably is not going to let me get away with it. So I will just share up some of my favorite examples from, for some reason, Twitter. Why does the Facebook content end up being shared so much on Twitter? Anyway, of course, you can go check this out yourself, so I'm not going to show you too many, but I did make sure to go play around with it and get a few of my own. So you're getting the original Philbuck touch on this particular take. So the feature is still being tested and is available to a limited number of users in English-speaking countries only. Once again, if you can use it, jump on the MSP Media Network Discord. Show me what you're able to get it to make. I get a real kick out of these. So.
In our feedback from the YouTubes, Run Josh Run and Kevin Dukevich had an amazing conversation about our top 10 cybersecurity misconfiguration article we covered in the previous episode. Josh's feedback was that SIEM should be one of the last items, that they need to have some of the other stuff in place first before actually going toward a SIEM. Kevin Dukevich also agreed and said that having a SIEM creates a lot of noise, a lot of alerts, and you definitely want to have the other stuff handled before you go down that path. To join that conversation and many, many more, join our Discord. And thank you, Josh. Thank you, Kevin, for the awesome feedback.
There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across the community, so let's see what's happening this week. On October 18th, an in-person event, Next Gen MSP, local events in Portland, Oregon. And also on the 18th through the 19th, another in-person event, ASCII MSP Success Summit in Reston, Virginia. And on the 19th through the 20th, another in-person event, SMB Tech Fest Q4 in Anaheim, California. And on the 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern, a guide to cybersecurity insurance for MSPs hosted by Finn. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have later today at 11 o'clock, MSP Community Live is back for episode 15. And next week, we'll be kicking it off again on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. with Wins and Losses, episode 11. And on Wednesday, a special episode of AI Roundup at 10 a.m. with a roundup of all the AI image generators out there on a special tier list. And then on Thursday the 19th at 6:30 p.m., the Tech Bar returns to welcome special guest Megan Killian of MKC Agency.
So how'd you like today's show? If you liked it, hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't, hit it 3, 5, 7 times. You know the deal. And if you want to hear more, go and hit that subscribe button on the YouTubes or your favorite podcatcher. Did you know we also have a Discord where we post stories all week? You can propose your own stories and even vote on which ones we'll cover. As my friend Rich Mankey says, make sure to tell a friend. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. Have any questions? Email us, news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode, or leave us a voicemail, 833-MSP Network. Tony, I think we appropriately scared all of our viewers for this Friday the 13th. How do you feel, man?
Right, dude, we're 156 episodes in. We are labeled as the number one most terrifying podcast out there that is simultaneously educational. We are labeled as, I think we're the 8th biggest feed into the therapist world after the MSPs listen to this. But there's a direct correlation between each of our episodes and the government actually implementing rules and regulation and enforcement, which we have seen and reported on repeatedly. Now, I'm not saying that any of this is totally true. I'm just saying, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of correlating points here.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm waiting for the day when like we get a sponsor from like BetterHelp or like Brightside or one of the online therapy groups. That would be the perfect circle of life right there. Tech Bar gets sponsored by a liquor manufacturer. MSP Dispatch gets sponsored by a therapist. I feel we're covering all the bases at that point. Tony, thanks so much for spending this awesome Friday the 13th with me. Thanks for all the terrifying stories that will keep me up all weekend. And I look forward to seeing you next week, man. Take care.
You too, brother. Be safe, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Cloudflare deployed an IP jail system to combat this, temporarily barring offending IPs from using HTTP. HTTP. One more time.
HTTP.
HTTP. Okay.